Cuban Suite, poems by Cecilia Milanes, musical accompaniment and vocals by Kevin Meehan and Jorge Milanes. The first piece is Cultivation, para papá.
Por el camino del sitio mío, un carretero alegre paso. Es un tonada que mi guajira y mi sentida le canto.
As a boy in El Campo, he labored in the cane fields from the legal age of bondage, 7. Behind El Bohío, they grew what they ate, what they could sell, mostly viandas. In this country, it would be 10 years before his hands touched soil and creation again. Once we had our own lot, a rectangle of grass, and the lone sycamore, a dozen aged though intoxicating rose bushes, and voluptuous hydrangea. He started mowing, trimming, transplanting, but his heart wasn't in it. He wanted to cultivate, not garden. In Miami, tropical fruit trees awaited his touch.
Yo trabajo sin reposo, para poderme casar. Yo trabajo sin reposo, para poderme casar. Y si lo puedo lograr,
He grafted different types of citrus, limones. Now these are limones, he said, not like those tasteless yellow ones from the store. Naranjas. These are the sour ones for the lechon. You see the difference between the eating and thin-skinned juicing kind, he said. Toronja. Our deep reds are not as sweet as the light pinks from El Vecino next door. He searched nursery after nursery for just the right mango, his fruta preferida, and decided upon a tasty Hayden. The orange-red treasures were illuminated by the spotlight he fixed on the tree, seducing many a driver on our street. Later, he found the mango chocolate, smaller, milder in color and flavor, but lacking stringy fiber and only a sliver of a seed to interfere with its enjoyment of its silky texture and creamy flesh.
soy guajiro y carretero, y en el campo vivo bien. Soy guajiro y carretero, y en el campo vivo bien. Porque el campo es el heredero, al lindo del mundo entero.
Then there were the exotics, guanábana, this green, prickly, kidney-shaped fruit whose size ranged from that of a newborn kitten to a quart of milk. He guarded against all colds. Mamey, gritty, brown-skinned, small football, the inside so beautiful a color it is appropriately named after itself. The seed, a polished mahogany, too perfect to throw away, saved in the back of drawers. Sapote, grittier and darker skin, though a much more handsome, slow-growing tree, its ivory heart extracted for batidos y helados. There were papayas, always male and female, plátanos, manzanos y burros, and a low, known as sábila for burns. Mommy's favorite, anong, comida de bobo he called it, because its sweet pulp must be sucked away from its host of seeds, and one must eat 2 or 3 to feel satisfied. And no one left our house without samples of whatever fruit was in season, sometimes hijitos in the form of cuttings, or ramitos, small branches, for grafting.
Chapé en el monte, cultivation, recoge el fruto de tu sudor. Chapé en el monte, cultivation, recoge el fruto de tu sudor.
In his business as yard man, he scouted every lot in the neighborhood and surrounding suburb and knew exactly where to find any interesting species. Medicinals he remembered from El Monte, flowers whose stems could be sipped for sugar, flowers that dance on your outstretched palm, leaves for infections, indigestion, nerves, stories for every plant. In Cuba, it was forced labor before sunrise till after sunset. Here, he was his own boss. He worked for himself, for us. When he's semi-retired, he bought a condo with no land of his own. Soon enough, renegade papayas and plátanos started sprouting around the lake and next to the buildings. Only 2 or 3 decorative plants on his own balcony. Nature belongs outside, he said. I keep these out of obligation. Besides, he can pick whatever he needs from the old neighborhood, only blocks away. The draw of those trees, a mighty magnet. Those fruits, his life work, who'll remember his careful hands.
Chapea el monte y cultive el llano, recoge el fruto de tu sudor. Chapea el monte y cultive el llano, recoge el fruto de tu sudor.
Back When I Was, a series of poems. The first one is Back When I Was Cuban. Back when I was Cuban, with no language but my mother's and father's tongue, a Cuban baby without words, only a language that murmured inside, a singing, festive system of signs. My world, a world with only other speakers of this code, a Cuban baby, then a Cuban toddler. I sucked and sucked the milk of a people. Back when I was a Jersey girl. Back when I was a Jersey girl, talking black, talking shit, hanging out on the street, dungarees with patches or studs, I was something. Me and my girls, we was something. Girls together, we was Jersey girls. Back when I was in exile. Back when I was in exile, stripped from my comfortable concrete, rusted fire escapes and rotting garbage, I remembered the river. It was a reverse exodus. I cried at the shores of the river before the diaspora. I followed its polluted currents, wondering how many shopping carts, tires, and batteries waited at the bottom to pull me down. On the other side of the river, west, the setting sun, the avenues and runways to another place, not south, why never south. When I was in exile, I began my grief before I left. It had been planted in me. The seed of exile made me. When I was in exile, in a land of ruthless sun and brutalizing heat, breathing was like drinking hot water. I put on my mourning clothes, shielded my eyes, became white, became blind, invisible, an exile without the right language, an exile without roots, without protection from the merciless, unblinking sun. Back when I was a quinceañera. Back when I was a quinceañera, I had my name written in flowers on an altar where I was queen. As a quinceañera, I ruled the night. Everybody paid attention and homage to me. As a quinceañera, I was sweet, innocent, wore white with meaning. A peach boa-trimmed chiffon cape floated behind me. I wore pearls, a tiara, curls dripping down my virgin neck. Back when I was a disco queen. Back when I was a disco queen, I won a trophy. I could prove my skills on any dance floor. I danced from Quebec to Cancun. I boogie-oogie-oogie, got down and hustled with the best of them. The helmet heads at Limelight, Cubaniche guys at the 747 Lounge, slick honey-dripping thibos from Big Daddies, plasticos populating the Mutiny, and honey for the bears. Scaramouche was my playground, and the top drawer, my cradle. I was at Infinity, Roseland, spun around Ipanema, kicked up my heels at Pete and Lenny's, Studio 51 and Mr. Pips. I've been through Fire and Ice, the Soap Factory, and the 94th Aero Squadron. A disco queen's lands are immense. She must dance with all of her subjects. This piece is called Stained Teeth, and it's for Virgil. Number 1. It begins with my father, whose lack of adequate and nutritious food produced weak and rotting teeth, though it really begins with his father and mother, with their malnutrition and poverty, but it leads to Papi's inability to smile in old photographs. When he arrives in this country, one of the first priorities was to get new teeth. And because I remember them sitting at the bottom of glasses, I am not terrified. In fact, I patiently wait for them to take their place in Papi's mouth. When there was enough money for a permanent fixed set, we drove to Melbourne, Florida, where a shark circled in a bay while we waited for Papi's smile to be fitted. He has had perfect white teeth for so many years now and has laughed so easily for so long that those who know him here call him Vive Bien. Number 2. It begins with exposure to tuberculosis, close living conditions among the infected, and just like that, Mommy gets the microbe. When she arrives in this country, she's x-rayed, and it's determined that she must take drugs. It is determined that I, an infant, must take drugs, tetracycline, as a preventative measure. When I'm old enough to care about what I look like in photos, I mimic Papi's early closed-mouth smiles to hide his dark teeth. I brush with everything from baking soda to costly dentist-prescribed paste. I considered bonding, but settled for a whitening treatment, requiring the wearing of a clear plastic dam to press bleaching gel on my teeth for hours before bed. It works, and I am temporarily whiter by 2 or 3 shades. But the damage has already been done. I smile without regard for their color, accustomed to the legacy of poverty. This next piece is called Cuban American Manifesto, and it's dedicated to Guillermo Portavales. I want to write a Cubaniche poem, full of rumba, conga y cha-cha-cha, con azúcar, sazón, café, tabaco y salsa. A Cuban poem for those over there, a Cuban American poem for those over here. I want to celebrate our richness and complexity, and I figure you saw Mambo Kings and Buena Vista Social Club, so you know a little something about Cuban culture, even though Armand's American. Antonio's a Spaniard, and why is Celia singing in English? And Desi Jr. can't even speak Spanish. But maybe I'm splitting hairs, and why should you care? That's okay, because it's a joyful culture, and we're a warm people. We let anybody in, and we're good at passion. We put on a good show for you with Elian, didn't we? Even if it got us into the trouble with the Miami police or the American public. And isn't it pretty funny that Elian's papi got a Medal of Honor for not defecting? You can laugh, it's okay. You still want tostones, Cuba Libres, cigars, y one go. And it's true, Americans been visiting the island for years. You can have a mojito a la bodeguita del medio. Just don't let them stamp your passport or the FBI will type your name on a forbidden island file. I want to be grateful in this poem. I mean, I am touched by your acknowledgement of our existence, and I want to help you know more, know deeper, wider, more than the 5-second soundbite or 500 hours of ABC, CNN, CBS, NBC, Fox Time, Newsweek, Elian coverage. I'd like to show you the difference between guajiros and puntos guajiros, make my people, my culture easier. I want to help you appreciate what's being repackaged and pushed on you in individually sold box sets, nostalgia raised to the power of 1,000. And do you remember Babalu? Ricky Ricardo with his fine Cuban self, immaculate guayabera, and his charming temper tantrums. And you all know the song Guantanamera.
Yo soy un hombre sincero, de donde crece la palma. Yo soy un hombre sincero, de donde crece la palma. Y antes de morir me quiero echar mis versos del alma.
Guantanamera, Guajira Guantanamera, Guantanamera, Guajira Guantanamera. But did you know that it means country girl from Guantanamo? And maybe it's hard to understand what it means for Cecilia to sing Martí's poetry. What it means to sing, and before I die, I want to sing verses from my soul. And probably you've never heard of Portavales who sang Cuando Salí de Cuba.
Nunca podré morirme, mi corazón no lo tengo allí. Allí me está esperando, me está llamando que vuelva allí. Cuando salí de Cuba, dejé mi vida, dejé mi amor. Cuando salí de Cuba, dejé enterrado mi corazón.
Ahí, here, allá, there. There, the there waiting is Cuba. Cuando salí de Cuba. When I left Cuba, I left my heart buried there. But between this tierra aquí and that tierra allá is mi tierra. Because even if I'm from here, I'm not just from here, from Jersey, Miami, or even Orlando, but also a country or city girl from the island, repeating island, a forbidden island. I don't want to mess up your good feeling about seeing Buena Vista and buying the CD and feeling good about that feel-good music. Feel good, upright and righteous.